Welcome to live Daily Tottenham Hotspur news with me, Barnaby Slater. And after a lovely weekend off, although I'd have much rather still been in the cup, it is time to now look forward to Thursday's Europa League game at AZ Alkmaar, who lost yesterday in the Eredivisie. Meanwhile, a fair few exciting reports on potential incomings to Tottenham this summer, as well as another rumour of a huge club that are interested in taking our captain from us. Meanwhile, I'll be discussing a very well-earned award for Archie Gray and the latest on the fight for a freeze in season ticket prices. All this and more on today's Daily Tottenham Hotspur news. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. As ever, please do press that like button if you're watching. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber for live daily Tottenham news every afternoon at 12:30. And also, thanks so much to all of you guys who've been watching the daily stand-up clips that I've been posting. Every morning at 10 o'clock, I'll be posting a YouTube short of a joke or something that I do on stand-up because I'm on stand-up from my stand-up because I'm a stand-up comedian as well. And a lot of you have been watching them. So I really appreciate your support, guys. But let's get started, and as ever, with transfer talk. And another player who has been on Tottenham's list for quite a while, a player who clearly Barcelona aren't that fussed about keeping, and apparently Arsenal and Spurs will be battling it out, amongst other clubs, for Barcelona forward Ferran Torres. Obviously a former Manchester City player, not currently playing regularly for Barcelona, and therefore his future is in doubt. It's put a lot of clubs on alert with, like I said, Arsenal, Spurs, Napoli, and AC Milan named as potential clubs he could be going to via reports in Spain. Let me know in the comments what you think of Ferran Torres. It doesn't seem to make a great deal of sense to me in terms of the transfer strategy, the kind of players that Spurs are looking to buy at the moment, more of a kind of younger age range and demographic, growing with the team, etc., etc. But also, can't have it both ways. We can't criticize Johan Langer and Scott Munn and Ange Postecoglou for not buying players who are kind of oven ready for the first team, to coin a political phrase, and then not want those players if they become available as well. And Ferran Torres obviously is a player who could really do some damage in that forward line. So let's see what happens with that one. Interestingly, in the comments, Nick in Hong Kong says Son to Bayern, and that is what I'm going to be talking about next, because apparently Sonny is considering a move to Bayern Munich. He's been linked with the German side, and according to Spanish reports, he is considering a move to the Allianz Arena. They're looking to strengthen their attack for next season, and he is said to perfectly fit with their playing philosophy. I mean, if they were to keep Harry Kane and bring Sonny in as well, to kind of almost like recreate the old days, that would be quite exciting to watch Bayern Munich. I've been pretty consistent on how I feel about Sonny. If he wants to leave Spurs and take another challenge, then I would not want anyone to stand in his way. In a dream world, it's a deal that would get Tottenham some money as well. And he will have 1 year left on his contract after this summer. So that is a way of doing that. And obviously Spurs have done really good business with Bayern Munich recently. But I don't know. I mean, obviously these Spanish reports saying that Bayern are really keen on him, but I'm not sure if that makes perfect sense. They've got so many forward options. That's why Tell obviously left Bayern to come to Spurs anyway. So I'm not really sure. The reports are saying that the next few weeks will be key to defining Sonny's future at the club. Also, other reports, as previously claimed elsewhere, that Sonny could be tempted by a lucrative move to Saudi Arabia with Al Ittihad and Al Hilal, expressing an interest and potentially willing to bid 50 million euros for him, around 41 million pounds. Let me know in the comments how you feel about Sonny. Do you agree with me that if he wants another challenge, we should let him go? It's not that I want him to go. I think, as I've said many times, if we can manage his minutes, then as far as I'm concerned, he could still be an absolutely elite player, both off the bench in some games, but also I think to start in the big games still. In the games where there's going to be space behind the back line of the opponents, then I think Son is still an absolute genius of a player, frankly. So let's see what happens with Sonny. Oisin Smith in the comments says, Romero fit for Argentina again. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Christian Romero has been named in the preliminary squad for Argentina's next international game, with the international break coming up in the next think 10 days or so, 2 weeks or so. It is a bit of a problem because we've discussed it many times before, haven't we? Christian Romero seems to always get himself fit just in time to go off to Argentina. It certainly happened earlier this season where he played the game just before the international break, almost to try and prove his fitness, and he played pretty appallingly. And it is something that frustrates Spurs fans, that's for sure. For me, I don't know how it really officially works, but Tottenham need to be starting to put their foot down in situations like this because we need Romero fit for this Europa League run. That is for sure. So it is very much frustrating as far as I can say. Reggie D says we should judge Romero by his actions, not his words. His actions show that Spurs is not his priority and we can't rely on him. It's time to say goodbye. Well, listen, I've been consistent about this as well. If Romero wants to leave and Real Madrid, if it is going to be Real Madrid, or someone comes in with the money it would take to get out a World Cup winning and Copa America winning centre half, which I think would be around £100 million realistically, then I think that's £100 million that Tottenham can reinvest in the squad. And so that's not something I would turn down. I don't know if it's quite as simple as that he's not showing commitment to Spurs because he always wants to play Argentina, but I do think there is a lack of kind of common sense decision making from both him and the Argentinian FA sometimes. Let's see what happens. The key thing is, can we get him fit for the remainder of this season? It's now March the 3rd, so we're looking at all we need is 2.5 months out of him and Mickey van de Ven, and also potentially 2.5 months where he doesn't even have to play all the Premier League games. Just get him fit for those Europa League games. That is what I want to happen. Ralph Hull says, hi Barnaby, first time I'm getting to join live. Thanks as always for the commitment to keeping us appraised of all things Spurs. No problem, guys. In case you didn't know, live every weekday at 12:30 in the afternoon. Although I didn't see you guys on Friday, I'm aware of that. But sometimes, sometimes it's a slow news time. And I can't just come on here unless there's enough Tottenham news to talk about. But that's why it should be a bit of a bumper edition on Monday. El Dante in the comments says, yes, instead of enjoying having one of our best centre-backs, let's go back to this tired narrative of Romero not wanting to be at the club. Okay, so El Dante disagrees with one of the former previous commenters. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that he doesn't want to be at the club, but I'd also say, it's a tale as old as time. If a club like Real Madrid shows their interest in you, and they've been showing an interest via the leaking of reports for about a year, 18 months now, then that player will want to go there. In the same way that Romero wanted to come to Spurs from Atalanta, who he'd been on loan at from Juventus. So we can't have it both ways. We can't be excited and happy when players want to come to us because we're supposedly a bigger club and then be frustrated at them because they want to go to Real Madrid. So the key is, will Real Madrid or whichever other club comes in for him pay the money? They'll have to pay the money. We know that Daniel Levy is a master and tough negotiator. And if the money comes in, then that is money we will be able to properly reinvest. And actually, I don't know how you feel. Let me know in the comments. But I feel relatively positive about the future of our backline. Obviously, Archie Gray doing unbelievable things. I'll talk more about him later in the episode. But Kevin Danso has come in, 27 years old, not a big hallowed name, and has proven, and obviously it's a small sample size because he's only played a few games, but proven that you don't need to be a huge name 50, 60 million pound player to come in and do well at Spurs. He's come in, he's settled incredibly well, and he's shown that he's really up for it and really keen. And I could see him doing really well alongside Mickey van de Ven, for instance, if and when he gets fit. So, yeah, let's just see what happens with Romero. But I'm not gonna kill him for wanting to go to Real Madrid if Real Madrid are indeed interested. Simon Cohen in the comments says, morning Barnaby, will Tyler Dibbling join this summer? I talked about Tyler Dibbling last week. Very exciting talent, wing talent from Southampton. Lots of amazing reports about his development from former coaches who've brought him up. Obviously, we have great history with buying young from Southampton with what happened with Gareth Bale. And Dibbling does look like a superstar talent in the making. I think there had been a lot of talks between Spurs and Southampton about the possibility of Dibbling joining Spurs at some point. Thought it might happen in January, but I think Southampton were insisting on Dibbling being loaned back to them. And that was something that Tottenham couldn't really countenance with all the injuries that we had. So it would not surprise me at all if that was a deal that was done in the summer. And in a weird way, it might not even be the worst idea to let him go back to Southampton in the Championship for a loan next season and just get as many minutes under his belt as he can before coming to Spurs. I don't know. That might not be something that Langer and Postecoglou would want, especially if we're likely to lose. And as I'll talk about this later, definitely Werner will be leaving the club, and I think possibly Richarlison as well. Some reports out this morning saying that Tottenham are going to seriously reconsider Richarlison's place in the squad in the summer. So that is kind of two players in the forward line that we'll be looking to replace. So maybe Dibbling just comes in and kind of threatens the first team alongside the likes of Mikey Moore, Matthias Tell if he stays, Kulusevski, obviously, Maddison, and Wilson Odobert, amongst others. Jeffrey Drummond in the comments says, hi, Barnaby. Torres would be an option D or E for wide forwards transfers options. Barca, as always, need to sell. Yeah, of course, that is a good point. Barcelona just constantly get themselves in financial disarray and regularly can't even register their players at the end of transfer windows and have to do deals with the Spanish FA, kind of selling off different parts of their assets to allow them to stick to the financial rules. So let's see what happens there. I'm not sure whether he'd be a D or E for wide forward transfer options. I can't really. I think it's a fair point, but I can't really see into the midst of how Scott Munn and Johan Lange and Big Ange Postecoglou think. But like I said initially when talking about it, I'm not sure he's necessarily, in terms of the demographic of players that Spurs are going for at the moment, like he's very different to Tyler Dibbling, isn't he? But also some reports this weekend as well that we're going to look at trying to do a double deal for Eza and Gay from Crystal Palace. And we're looking at about 150 million pounds if we were to do that. And in that instance, they would be two players who would pretty much straight away go into the first team. And that is what Tottenham fans and what the media are now constantly saying that Daniel Levy needs to do next and that Tottenham need to do next. So maybe a Ferran Torres is another option for something like that. El Dante also says, no chance Sonny will leave for Saudi Arabia. Okay, interesting. I mean, some reports suggest it could be an option, but let's see what happens. Designed to win loose. Says, agree totally, Barnaby. Son should make his own decision. He has to accept he won't play all the time now at Tottenham. Eugene Marlingham says, I want Sonny to retire at Spurs, but I also want him to be happy. If his heart is no longer with Spurs, then I think it would be beneficial for everyone for Sonny and Spurs to part ways. And then a little sad emoji there from Eugene. Look, we've had an amazing run with Son Heung-min on the pitch, off the pitch, everything. There's no bigger dream, is there, for any of us than to see Sonny lift the Europa League at the end of the season. That would be the dream. And I've said numerous times, Sonny should get a 15, 20-year contract and he can be an ambassador and he can be a coach. So I don't mind as long as he's treated with the respect he deserves and gets the send-off that he deserves if he does leave in the summer. But like I said, I think if he stays at the club longer, I still think he'll be able to do an amazing job. Okay, guys, before I go on to the next bit of transfer news, nearly 200 of you watching concurrently. Thank you so much for the support. We're at 30 likes. Let's try and get it up to 50 likes. So if you haven't pressed that like button yet on YouTube, please do press that like button. Let's get up to 50 likes and get this seen by as many Spurs fans as possible. Okay, according to some reports from Italy, Spurs now plotting a summer move to sign Nico Paz from Como. The former Real Madrid midfielder, he's thrived in Serie A since joining from Spain and has caught the eyes of the Tottenham scouting team, who love the Argentinian playmaker. Now, Spurs obviously have great history with Argentinian players, all the way back to Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa, and now Christian Romero, and many in between. Gio Lo Celso for one. Good player. Shame he didn't get on the pitch more. Still just 20 years old, Nico Paz. The attacking midfielder looks destined to reach the very top once again, despite leaving Real Madrid last summer. Now, Nico Paz, of course, playing at Como. Who else plays at Como? Dele Alli made his first appearance in a squad for Como yesterday. He didn't get on off the bench, but I, for one, am so excited that Dele Alli is impressing Cesc Fabregas, who's the manager over there at Como, and I hope he gets some game time. And I also hope that if we really are interested in Nico Paz, that Dele's having a little word in Nico Paz's ear and saying, Tottenham would not be a bad place for you to play. They love a creative midfielder. So let's hope that's happening. Let me know what you think of Nico Paz, guys, in the comments. Looks like a decent player. I can't say I watch a great deal of Serie A and I haven't seen a lot of him, but exciting for us to be linked with creative players, because in reality, I think in terms of like pure creation, kind of number 10s, number 8s, it's only really Kulusevski and Maddison that we have on the books, and we need more players. So we're going to, what this season and last season have really proven is that no matter who's in charge next year or what happens at the end of this year, We need a deeper squad full of creativity and a bit more full of physicality for next season, because the likelihood is we're going to continue to get injuries. I also read a really interesting article, not just about Spurs, but about the Premier League and football as a whole, that just said the amount of hamstring injuries is up double from 10 years ago. And there are so many reasons discussed as to why that is. And obviously Tottenham, one of the clubs who have suffered from that the most. So, because of the endlessness of the fixture schedule, because the World Cup was played during the winter, because the Club World Cup is coming in this year as well, that's not going to change. So teams are going to need to have bigger, deeper squads. So I'm here for Spurs buying more creativity. Shem Tan in the comments says, afternoon, what do you think will happen to the squad if we get knocked out of the Europa League and finish outside of European qualification? Do you think Romero and others will want to leave? I think, the talk about Romero potentially leaving, as we've already discussed in this episode, is already there. And I think whatever happens, Romero will likely leave in the next year, 2 years maximum. Other players in terms of leaving if we don't make it into the European places, I don't really see that. What I've really noticed in the last 5 years, especially in the Premier League, is the money is so much higher in the Premier League, like the broadcasting rights money is so much higher, that players don't simply go to clubs because they're in the Champions League anymore. They know they're going to get paid in the Premier League, no matter whether they're in the Champions League or not. So it's not quite as important. So I don't foresee a lot of other players kind of wanting to leave Spurs if we don't win the Europa League and get into Europe next season. But a lot of that, I think, is also because we've got such a young squad now. They kind of know that they're here for the long term. A lot of them are getting incredible amounts of minutes at a young age. And as a result, they're kind of growing. And I don't think there are that many kind of players reaching their peak. Maybe you could think about like Vicario, but I really just do not see Vicario kicking up a fuss and wanting to leave Spurs. I just don't think that is going to happen. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Really good question from Shemtan there. Really appreciate it. Robert Yee in the comments says, what most don't know and understand is Sonny has a strong connection to the Korean FA. And like most countries with poor support from their public, which shows in K-League attendance, players have to go away to get experience. Okay, good. Thank you for your comment. Really appreciate it. Kaladiva says, Romero is not worth 100 million, realistically around 70 million. Yeah, but you've got to add on the Daniel Levy tax. That's the thing. I don't think Daniel Levy will let him go for 70 million. Maybe if he's only got a year or 18 months left on his contract. But Daniel Levy in any meeting will say, this is a player who has lifted the World Cup. He's lifted the Copa America. There are not many better ball-playing centre-halves in the whole world, and Daniel Levy will be aware of that. Let's see what else we got here. Giovanni says, here's a suggestion. How about keeping Sonny? If he no longer feels he's got it, then give him a coach job or an ambassador job for the club. What are your thoughts on? Yeah, I've been saying that. Thanks for your comment, Giovanni. I've been saying that for a long time on this channel. I want Sonny to stay around the club. Give him that ambassador role. Give him a coaching role if he wants a coaching role. Whatever he wants. I really, really think he should stay if he wants to. But if he doesn't want to, and that's not where his heart is, then I certainly think, we let him go with our blessing, I basically think. Robert Yee says, staying connected to the English football pyramid is a likely move for Sonny, but continued connection to the Bundesliga is also good. Of course, he did play at Leverkusen before. Okay, well, thank you for your comments. Really appreciate it. Simon Ulster says, so Romero's played 20 games this year and we can't get a full season out of him. Let him go to Real. We have Danso, Van der Ven, Vuskovic, Dragishin, Phillips, and others that can play there. I mean, let's be honest. I appreciate your comment, but we haven't seen anything of Ashley Phillips. He is getting games on loan at Stoke, but we haven't seen nearly enough of him yet. Let's see what happens in pre-season when he'll come back, and I'm sure he'll go on the tour to South Korea. Roger Munro says, sell all the old crew players and put together a huge fund to bring in the wonderful young players on the up. Our wage bill will drop dramatically, giving more funds to go for the golden young players. Okay, yeah, thanks for your comment. Really appreciate that. Sean Pierce with a super chat. Thanks so much. Imagine the scenes at our final home game this season if Son does decide to leave. The whole crowd will be in tears. We'd give him a massive send-off. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to see it, but yeah, if he does leave, then I really hope it is an unbelievable send-off. Frankly, better than the one Harry Kane got, but that was kind of a last-minute situation. He did get a nice film on social media. Anyway, into some other transfer talk. Spurs looking to improve their defensive unit, potentially with the signing of Taylor Harwood-Bellis from Southampton. Obviously, that would be another Southampton player we're interested in after Tyler Dibling. According to reports, we're keeping tabs on the 23-year-old defender who did make his England debut earlier this season. It's no secret they need more quality central defenders, and the Southampton star could prove to be the ideal acquisition. Other Premier League clubs also keen on providing him a potential exit strategy include Newcastle, Aston Villa, Palace, Everton, Brighton, and West Ham. So that's another player that Spurs have been interested in. Also, Spurs and Newcastle are interested in Samu Agahawa, who plays for Porto. He's 20 years old. He's a forward, and Bayern Munich are also interested. So again, Spurs looking at potential forwards as well as centre halves. And some other reports came out late last week that Spurs are among several Premier League clubs keen on the Olympiacos duo Charalampos Kostoulis and Christos Mouzakidis. Arsenal, Forest, Chelsea and Villa also keeping tabs on them. Widely regarded as two of the best young talents in Europe, they've been making waves in Greece this season, establishing themselves in the Olympiacos first team. One of them is Kostoulis, who's 17 years old. He's netted 6 times in 20 games. And Mouzakidis is a defensive midfielder and has made 16 top-flight appearances. So once again, more work from Johan Lang, Scott Munn, just trying to scour Europe for some of the best talent around. And then let's be realistic, also probably the best talent around that Chelsea aren't interested in, because some reports I saw over the weekend that Chelsea hoovering up even more young, mostly Brazilian talent, kind of 16, 17 years old players. So Tottenham probably realistically swimming in the same waters, but trying to find players who Chelsea haven't quite found yet. Tarzan in the comments says, Romero, just going back to the Romero point, Romero fits into the overrated category based on what we saw of him. And El Dante says, I don't agree with that. I think he was overplayed by club and country with barely a rest over the past 2 years, and so injuries hit as expected. But when he's fresh, he's one of the best. Thank you, El Dante. I have to say, I agree more with El Dante. I think Romero is an absolutely brilliant centre-half. He had played a lot of football, and I think that's what led to a number of kind of lapses in concentration in some of those games earlier this season. But you have to think, with all this time he's had out now, that if we can get him properly fit, and that's what Big Ange Postecoglou has been talking about, and ways to keep him fit, especially for this Europa League run, you'd have to think with his experience of winning big titles for Argentina, if we get deep into the Europa League, he could really help to drag us over the line. That is what we've got to hope, and we've got to get him fit for that. Andrew Cook in the comments says, I suspect the game since the peak of the injury crisis will make Levy open the purse strings a bit more. We've seen the quality improve with people returning. There's incentive for Levy to bolster. Well, if you look at the net spend league table for the last 5-6 years since we moved into the stadium, I think we're third in it. So it's not like money hasn't been spent. It's just that, once again, as we've talked about so many times, it's whether that money has been spent well. And then, of course, on the flip of that, the wage table is where Spurs are not really willing to overspend. But in terms of, I think, spending on players who are young and exciting, who won't demand a huge wage early on in their career at Spurs, I think Tottenham, and I agree with you, Andrew, I think Tottenham will keep spending money to do that. El Dante says, I'd love us to sign Nico Paz. Been saying we should sign him for a few months now, but deal wouldn't be easy as Real Madrid have a buyback option on him. Netflix, thanks for your comments, says, Nico Paz is a good player. I'm a Real Madrid fan and I cry why we let him go. Well, sounds like you've got a buyback deal, so that might not be too bad. Sleepy Mocha says they increased the number of subs and the injuries still increased. Yeah. I think it's more about just how much sprinting players are expected to do in the Premier League now. Like, if you look at all the stats and how many more sprints there are per game from players, especially for Tottenham, that is another reason why there's so many injuries. Nick in Hong Kong says, at least AZ had to play yesterday. Less of a break than us. They lost 3-1 away to Herenveen. That's right. Although in the previous game, Man City had a day less rest than us as well, and they mainly kept us at arm's length, certainly in the first half, didn't they? David Blair says 100% Romero will want to leave in the summer. There's a reason why Spurs did a last-minute Gay bid in January. It's not like you would bring him in to sit on the bench. Yeah. Well, David, do you think we'll go again for Gay, or will we be outbid in the summer by the likes of Newcastle and maybe others? Let's see what happens. Okay, some reports this weekend saying that Spurs midfielder Yves Bissouma will be allowed to leave the club in the transfer window, and that there is interest from Marseille, Nice, and Crystal Palace. Now, if Crystal Palace are indeed interested in Yves Bissouma, is there a deal then to be done for Eza and or potentially Guehi, with Bissouma going the other way? That could be interesting. I think Bissouma only has 1 year left on his contract after this summer, and he hasn't started or played in any of the last few games. I think the last game he played for Spurs was at Arsenal when he gave the ball away. It's a difficult one for Bissouma because, and for those of us who like him as a player, he's incredibly talented on the ball, but I think his mind isn't always in the right place. And he does, I've said this so many times, but he does the hard things unbelievably well, but then will just give the ball away. He's got all the talent that Moussa Dembele had, his ability to take the ball on the half turn, to use his body to get in the way of opponents, to beat a player, to find a pass. But then just sometimes he lacks concentration and gives it away easily. So frustrating. Let me know what you think of Yves Bissouma in the comments. But I have to say, it would not surprise me at all if Big Ange Postecoglou has kind of decided, as he did with Gio Lo Celso, that maybe it's better if we break up, if we let Yves Bissouma go somewhere else. And we bought him for what, £25 million, which seemed like a steal at the time. You would think we'd be able to get that back at least, maybe even get £30 million. But perhaps if Crystal Palace are indeed interested, that is something that we could do a little deal with on the Eza and or the Gehi interest that we have. Simon also says, so we have Phillips, Devine, Yang, Donnelly, Vuskovic to come back. We need cover at left back and another experienced central midfielder to get Lolo Bendika doing that role in front of the centre backs and another top striker. And I don't see a problem. Yeah, look, I think Ange has been quite honest, hasn't he, that this is going to be a big rebuild and he's going to need a number of transfer windows. I'd say we're probably just over halfway through the rebuild, realistically, maybe 60% way through the rebuild. So you suggesting we need what there? Cover at left back 1, experienced centre back 2, at least 3. Yeah, at least 3 players, and ideally players who can go straight into that first team. And then what you've got next season is a really great situation where those players who have played a lot this season, like Bergvall and Gray, but at such a young age, they can be kind of picked and chosen more to come and play and supplement the team and play when the team's confident and really bring their talent in a more confident situation than this season when they've had to play a lot where we've had so many injuries and realistically not had a great chance of winning many games. So that is something exciting to potentially look forward to next season. El Dante says, Agahau has such good potential talent. Been following him all season. Good. That would be an exciting one then. Netflix, after your comment about Nico Paz earlier, said, I'm Coy's first, Madrid second. So if Paz comes to Spurs, I'll be more than happy. And David Blair says, I think we will go in again for Gay and Eza. £120 million plus Bissouma. Yeah, I think £100 million plus Bissouma would be a good deal if we could get it down to that. Glenn Spark, thanks for your comment, mate. Says, would any class defenders come to Spurs and be backups to Romero, Van der Ven, Danto, etc., players like Gay and Bellis? Yeah, I think they would. I think that's another reason why it's not going to be lost on players of the current era and their agents of how many injuries there are. So you want to come into a squad where, yes, you're going to get game time, but also where you're battling others, because the more talent there is in the squad, the higher chance you've got of properly competing for honours. So I don't have such a big problem for that anymore. Jay in the comments just says in capitals, Jonathan David. Yeah, Jonathan David, great player, playing in the French league, doing really well in the Champions League as well. He is out of contract in the summer, and Tottenham, along with West Ham and many other clubs, have been trying to get him on a pre-agreement, but I don't think anything has happened on that one yet. El Dante, angry with me. Please don't compare Bissouma to Dembele. Dembele is my favourite ever Spurs player, and Bissouma isn't close to being as good as Dembele. No, I agree. He's not as close. He's not close to being as good as him, but in terms of the attributes he has, if he had the right mentality, I think he could have become as good as Dembele, but he clearly isn't. And Roger Munro says, Bissouma's head has been fogged out by nitros, erratic at best. Yeah, of course, Yves Bissouma did get into trouble, didn't he, for being caught taking laughing gas. I think he even posted it on his own Snapchat account. That's almost like a perfect example of what I'm talking about. How it's like, not only did he do a stupid thing, but then he kind of supplemented the stupid thing by posting it himself on his social media. It's just not the smartest thing I've ever seen. Okay, I haven't done a video since Archie Gray was presented at the London Football Awards with the Men's Young Player of the Year award, beating Ethan Nwaneri, and Miles Lewis-Skelly from Arsenal, as well as Watford's Rocco Vata and Romain Essa of Crystal Palace. A huge award for Archie Gray. Dele Alli was the last Spurs player to win it. He won it twice in 2 years, in his early days at Spurs. And that is such an honor, honestly, for Archie Gray to get that. And I think he thoroughly deserves it. He's featured in 33 of our 42 matches this season, starting 25, including 19 of our last 20 matches, 16 of those playing at centre-back, a position he'd never played in previously. Ange Postecoglou has said this about him: I just think he's a fantastic player. I'm so pleased he's at this football club. He's a fantastic kid as well. He just wants to learn. No task is too much for him. He tackles everything with a real kind of calmness that belies his years. He wants to learn. He wants to get better. We are just very, very fortunate to have him at our football club. Whatever position he ends up playing, he's going to be outstanding. He has that attitude of wanting to improve, wanting to get better. He's already set a high benchmark. There are not many 18-year-olds who could throw into the Premier League, play out of position in such an important area of the park, and he handle it the way he has. Just brilliant. Harry Kane also won the award in 2015, and it was 2016 and 2017 when Dele Alli won that award. Like I've said, Archie Gray, he can do anything he wants. He really can. Reminds me of a young John Stones, France Beckenbauer, Matthias Sammer, those players who bring it out from the back. Quite lean, not big physical players, but don't need to be because they read the game so fantastically well. Very excited for him to win that award. And also a really lovely social media clip was posted by the Tottenham page of his kind of night out. They kind of did him kind of getting his shoes on before, getting his suit on, and then interviewing him throughout the evening. And he just seems like such a grounded kid. And I'm really pleased that we've got him. And that is kind of £40 million pretty well spent, because whatever happens with the rest of his career, and I've said before, I think he could, if he wanted to be Archie Gray, he could become like the next Steve Perryman, like starting playing for Spurs so early, he could play for Spurs for the rest of his career and rack up 700 or 800 appearances if he chooses to, but also probably likely that big clubs will sniff around him. Think about it. In 6 years' time, he's only going to be 24 years old, and he's already playing that well at centre-half. Well done, Archie Gray. Some other news. There was a great performance from Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis this weekend against Real Madrid. If you don't remember, Johnny Cardoso is the player that we have a first dibs deal on at Spurs as part of that Gio Lo Celso sale to Real Betis. Well, he had a superb display. He had 64 touches, 3 shots, 2 out of 4 successful dribbles, 3 clearances, 5 interceptions, and 3 tackles, helping Real Betis to a 2-1 victory over Madrid. But that wasn't all. He also headed home from a corner with 10 minutes left of the first half remaining. And there's a lovely little shot, a bit of footage of Johnny Cardoso from the game where he's under pressure in central midfield from Luka Modric, amongst other Real Madrid players, and just calmly takes it on his chest and then turns away from Modric to get the play going again for Real Betis. He's clearly a talent. Johan Langer likes him. They got that deal done for him. I think it's at about £25 million. I'm intrigued as to why they didn't try and take him in January, though. Maybe they had other priorities, but he looks like a good player, and be interesting to see in the summer whether Cardoso comes to Tottenham. Let me know in the comments if you think that's a player that will end up at Spurs, or if that's a first dibs deal that will come to nothing. Over 300 of you guys watching concurrently at the moment. Thank you so much for your support. Please do press that like button. We're on 65 likes. Let's try and get up to 100 likes. The more likes we have, the more Spurs fans get this in their suggested videos. Also, guys, if you're not currently a member of my channel, please do press that subscriber button. I'm nearly at 15,000 subscribers. Let's get there together. I've got about 550, 600 to go to get to 15,000. I'm really loving doing these live videos for you guys every afternoon at 12:30. And also you can listen on the podcast platforms, be that Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just go over there, type in the Spurred On podcast to the search engine, and you can hear me every day whilst you're out running or driving or whatever it is you guys are doing. Just a little stat here. Premier League players creating chances this season without providing an assist. Decky Kulusevski is at the top of that list. He has created the most amount of chances in the whole Premier League without having provided an assist. So basically, all the chances he's made have not been put away by our forward line. He has made 20 chances. Second to him is Cole Palmer with 17, alongside Enzo Fernandez, also at 17, and then Andy Robertson of Liverpool with 14. Okay, the transfer Don, Fabrizio Romano, came out this weekend and says that Spurs will not be signing Timo Werner. He says this: I think it's impossible. From my information, it's something they've already decided internally. It's not been a good season for Werner and for Spurs together, so I think it's in the interest of both parties to try something different next year. The expectation for Werner is that he'll return to Leipzig and then try a new experience, potentially the MLS and New York Red Bulls, according to Fabrizio Romano. He says, let's see for the summer. In January, it was never really close that he would leave. So I think that goes along with what we've probably all thought that we're probably not going to see a lot more of Timo Werner at Tottenham Hotspur. And I think that realistically is the correct decision. We tried something with Timo. If it had come off and we'd got him playing his best football from like when he was before he was at Chelsea, then that could have been incredible. But he has just totally lost his mojo since moving to Chelsea, lost all of his confidence. He did score that important goal against Man City, though. Roger Munro in the comments says, Bissouma's head has been fogged out by night. Oh, yeah, I already said that one. Sorry. Robert Yee says, thought it was another kid. Wharton, I think, was a player I thought of for a swap deal. That would be ideal. Yeah, Adam Wharton is back playing for Crystal Palace after injury, and he looked very impressive at the weekend. He is clearly a great player, but they only signed him pretty recently for quite a lot of money, so I cannot see him leaving Crystal Palace anytime soon, certainly not for extortionate amounts of money, the kind of money that maybe a Man City could pay. Whereas Gay and Eza, their contracts are running down, so they are now more in the kind of wheelhouse of Tottenham's ability to spend on players like that. Wesley in the comments, thanks for your comment. He says, I won't take us parting with Son. He got 20 goals and assists and is 30 to 40% of... I think you're saying I don't know what you're saying at the end there, but anyway. Mark Spence says Romero is a £65 million player. And Ralph Hall says, I would be very keen if we do go again for Gahey. Just hope he doesn't get snapped up. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about today, guys, is this great Jack Pitt-Brooke article from The Athletic about a meeting that was held last week between the club and the Supporters Trust, particularly concentrating on trying to keep the season tickets prices frozen, as well as the concessions issues with the seniors. I'm sure you will have seen late last week that West Ham, their fans managed to get together enough trouble or give enough kind of protest online to the West Ham board so that West Ham froze their season ticket prices. A number of clubs have done it, and Tottenham haven't yet come out with their season ticket prices. Jack Pitt-Brooke says, there's one big off-field question that will determine much of the mood on the terraces over the final phase of the season. What will the club do about ticket prices and concession policies for 25-26? It's a question that has hung over the club all year, ever since Spurs announced in March 24 that the season ticket prices for this season would go up by 6%, with controversial changes to senior concession season tickets too. There has been anxiety from fans over what the next changes would be. And as a result, the Spurs Supporters Trust have been in negotiations with the club all year, and they had that meeting last Tuesday evening with the club. So we are basically waiting to hear whether Tottenham are going to be brave enough to put up the season ticket prices again. I mean, my instinct is that there would be absolute riots if they did put it up again. We are, 13th, 14th in the league out of all the cup competitions except the Europa League. Looks like we're not going to be in Europe next season. In terms of the optics, it would look so bad, but so many decisions have been made by Enoch and Daniel Levy over the years where the optics have looked as bad as that. So you just wouldn't rule it out, would you? And as a result, like realistically, it may just happen. I really can't say for sure. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. It says here, obviously, Jack Pitt-Brooke was writing for The Athletic. He says, a Tottenham Hotspur spokesperson told The Athletic, we're formally engaged in dialogue and consultation with the Fan Advisory Board and Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust regarding ticket pricing and concessions on no fewer than 10 occasions. And we will continue to do so. Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen. Patrick in the comments says, completely agree about the season ticket price. Hard to justify another increase of 6% given the performance on the field. Nick in Hong Kong says, well, the price of hamstrings, ... And the Belgian Hotspur, thanks for writing, Joris, says, has there been any update on the takeover? No, I don't think, no update on the takeover. Just really, the last we heard on that is that big article that was done at late last week saying how Daniel Levy basically insisting on such a huge asking price for the club or any percentage of the club, as well as insisting on involvement for himself in any future running of the club, is what is putting people off. It just seems very unlikely to me, and maybe I'm a cynic, but it seems very unlikely to me that anytime soon, certainly until Tottenham manage to win something or have any proper success, that we will hear a day where Daniel Levy comes out and says, I've sold the club. I cannot imagine it. I think he's put so much into that club that he is determined to take something away from it as well and have it so that the Spurs fans remember him with some kind of fondness. Because it seems like any fondness we have for him over the fact that he's built that amazing stadium and training ground and built Spurs up to a club that are a top 6 club, whereas when he took over, they weren't. I don't think that's enough for him, and he really wants to find a way to get some kind of credit from the Spurs fan base for what we've done on the pitch as well. So let's see what happens. I imagine that this announcement about the season ticket prices and the concessions, the seniors concessions, will come out at some point in the next few days. And I have to say, if they come out and say there is another 6% ticket increase when other clubs like West Ham and others have frozen those prices, it will just look so bad for Daniel Levy and ENIC, although frankly, he's never seemingly afraid to make himself look bad. So I wouldn't be surprised. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciated all of your comments. Once again, if you're not a subscriber, please do press that subscribe button. I'm trying to get up to 15,000 subscribers. I'll be here every day, or certainly most days when there's enough Tottenham news, and discuss it all with you live, 12:30 on YouTube. And also you can become a member of my channel, just £1 a month. All the details of how to join either on YouTube or Patreon are in the description box below. And that £1 a month from some of you guys really helps me make this daily content. Really appreciate it. Listen, we're just 3 days now until the AZ Alkmaar first leg. Let's hope we can go there, turn them over easily, and therefore we can play a bit of a weakened team in the second leg. But it won't be easy. I don't think it'll be easy, but hopefully the players will be really bang up for it, and maybe a little surprise. Maybe we could get a Van der Ven or a Romero or a Solanke on the bench even. All right, guys, enjoy your Monday. Come on, you Spurs.